get started in just a bit. I think we might have a couple more. This is a four-hour workshop. So I'm happy that you chose my workshop. You're more than happy to leave don't leave entirely. I hope you don't leave, but leave to use the restroom or answer phones or anything like that. So what I usually do to get started with my workshops is I like to move around, get my muscles going by dancing. And you're more than happy to get up and move. You can stay seated. How many are familiar with Jim Gill? Anybody? Of course. Let me ask this question before we get started. And I guess I am starting now for the whole workshop. How many of you are children's librarians or youth librarians in here? Okay, good. Library directors in here? All right. Any other population that we serve in here? Yes? Adults. Adults, okay. Which is a huge piece of this because we've got parent and child. So let's do this. I'm gonna turn on Jim Gill. Just for a brief moment, it's called spaghetti dance or spaghetti legs. So we're just going to move our bodies around and to be silly because that's what I want. I want to be silly. So you're more than happy to stand up. Don't feel worried. Yeah. You're like, whoa. I've been in the car for 3 hours. So I don't see it. Okay. So like I said, just called spaghetti legs. We're going to start it right now. Hopefully, let me just tell you, I don't have this on any sound, so hopefully we can hear as much as we can hear, which would help if I turned it off mute. All right. Here we go. You can listen to the lyrics, and you don't have to. We're going to move our legs like this. And we're going to shake as fast as we can. Shake, 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 shake. Get those legs moving for a 4-hour workshop. We can do this. Okay, let's listen. Move our arms like this. We're going to shake, 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 shake as fast as we can. Now listen. We're going to move our neck. Don't give yourself whiplash. Move your neck. All right, here we go. Gotta use those a lot today. Here we go. Gotta shake like this as fast as we can. Yes, as fast as we can. Woo! And we're gonna go freeze. Awesome job. Very good. Okay. Enough with the exercise. Okay. So before we get into the workshop, we are going to get to know each other. How many of you came with library staff or know of people in the room right now? Okay. More than happy to stay at your own table, but I encourage you just to take about 5 minutes. Come on in. We just exercise. I know, it sounds like, what? I encourage you to get up and just introduce yourself to another librarian professional, and then I'll introduce myself to the group as well. So this will allow us just to get to know each other before we really get involved in our workshop. So, on the count of 3, I won't throw this ladybug at you that way, but on the count of 3, let's stand on up and let's go meet some new people, okay? 1, 2, 3.
I'm Janine. I'm from Minden. It's about 4 hours. Robin, nice to meet you. Yep, about 2 years ago. I was there because I missed the turn. I went up the phone and I was like, oh, we're too far. It's My name is Jean. I'm Jess. I'm from Boone. Which is okay, like Harvey. Oh, okay.
Memorial Library.
3 months. Okay.
Too close. We work together.
Yeah, right. Jess. Jean. Laura. Good. That's going to bring me great. I'm the library director and I kind of go out there. I've only been in my job for about 6 months, so I'm still in the right place. This is my first year out here. This is the last 6 years. Yes. A colleague of mine from Kansas was like, she goes, you just need to be on like a board and like just started telling them what you do. I was like, well, the new one will be central. Right now we're in Boone Valley. Okay. Yeah. We're Republican barely.
Yeah, kind of on the cusp.
Yes. Yeah, because we're Republican Valley and then Kearney, which is only 25 miles, it's mine.
Right.
So. Yeah, right. We'll all be together soon, though. I think they're planning on calling it Central. Three Rivers. It still will be.
I guess I'll know. At least by the end of the year.
Yes.
When all the other
The next couple of months.
There was some talk about
That's why you do free rivers. Because you can actually pick 3 of them. So for flat, library. My vote would be to drop the Missouri because it's the border. Yeah, but no matter which street name.
Yeah, when they were talking about ours in our board meeting, they were like, we'll probably go with Central, and they're like, we need more Central. It's kind of nice to see. It's about 4 hours.
Wheel him.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, I was thinking, oh, it's like a long 4 hours, but I know ladies from Oglala and North Platte, it's like they're having, they still have another 2.5 to 3 hours past meetings. Oh, sure. Yeah. But I've never been up to this kind of thing before, so like, I didn't like, I put Valentine and yeah, like even as far north as Columbus. Yeah, this section. Okay.
All right, my friends. Sorry. That's okay. I'm glad the conversations are happening. We're meeting some new, we're meeting some old friends. It's important for me that we feel comfortable in our learning community. Okay. You know, I used to live in Sioux City, and I was using Surrey today to get here. There's too many Sioux. She kept rerouting, and I got lost 3 times, but I'm here, so that's okay. So this is project engagement. We are going to go through a lot of, I guess, theoretical stuff, just a build-up for about an hour, hour and a half or so. I am not, and I'll repeat this, I am not going to stand up here and lecture for 2 hours, because that would be boring. I wouldn't want to hear me for 2 hours. What I'm going to do is we are going to have many times with your tables to ask, or we're going to answer questions that I give you, and then we're going to do a lot of discussion as a group. All right? There is no wrong answers with these. Identify them or answer them based upon your experience, your library. So, I will introduce myself. I'm going to slip on down here because I have to do this with our computer. About me. I am a children's library director in Boone, Iowa. I've been there for almost 3 years, October 18th. And then I was a youth services librarian in Bondurant, and then a library assistant, then a neurological rehab assistant, and then a page. And I cannot tell you that I will never leave libraries because they are my passion, my love, and that's why I love coming to these conferences. The bag that I gave you, I'm excited, just founded ZLS Consulting in May, so I provide workshops for you as librarians, consulting services if needed. We'll work with the state library to do that, so these workshops are for credit hours if you're in the state of Iowa. If you're outside of Iowa, I'll be coming there too, so no worries. I have a master's in library science and almost a second master's in early childhood coming in 15. So that's just a little bit about me. And if you have questions, just let me know. So let's do an overview of our presentation, of our workshop today. So we're going to talk about family-child engagement, which is pretty much a huge piece today, and fill it in with sensory-based information. And importance of assessment. You know, I do this workshop for child care providers as well, but as librarians, we can assess too our programs. We have to assess both quantitative and qualitative data. And understanding our learners. You can change that word if you want to do that. It doesn't have to be learners. I like to think of our children that come in as they're active learners, active beings, all right? And we're going to spend a long time with examples of activities, okay? There are sets of tables up here. I bought lots of supplies, puppets and books and paint and feathers. The front desk did not get it. They just did not understand what was coming through the door today. But that's the world of a children's library, I guess. So that is an overview. In your packet, in your bag, is the presentation slides. Take notes. Ask questions. So here we go. We're going to do our first activity. And in our first activity, we're going to have to define what engagement is as a group. All right? I'm going to hand out or pass out a piece of paper, several, and with that piece of paper, as a group, come up with a phrase, a word, whatever it may be, that defines what you think engagement is. We have to be able to identify what engagement is to understand what sensory programming, how do we get to sensory programming. So I have roll-out paper here. Everybody have a pen of some sort or a marker. Okay? Very neat and organized. So it's huge. Vanna White with this paper. It's exciting. Cutting skills are great. So, as a group, talk about for a few minutes or so how you identify engagement. That can be engagement with families, engagement with children, engagement with adults. You can reflect on your programming, your work experience. If you are directors, engagement can be with city administrators, because we all know that can be fun. All right? So, go ahead. Feel free to chat it up. I'm going to walk around. You ask me questions if you need it, okay? As I said, there's no wrong answer, but I'm giving you time to think about this. Is this the first game you can play with puppets?
kids eye contact.
Just how do we define some word engagement? Can you do by showing or telling? However you want to define that.
We got big paper. That's where my skills are.
Limited.
I can draw a picture.
Should I write it down?
Sure. Go ahead.
Nope, does not have to be neat, does not have to be organized.
I guess, activity too.
I would say even just attendance. What's that? Asking questions.
Maybe engage, use the tools in their
Yeah.
I think it's good for some kids. Yeah, some kids will be great. Yeah. Great. Great.
Repetition. Response. Yeah.
Where, they start to just fill in.
Communication.
That's all of these things are positive communication. Not just verbal, like just a body language.
Maybe like with our people in the city, like I'm trying to think of a good word. You know, like when you're out in the community and you recognize, oh, I heard they said that. Or, you know, I think of that as, you know, engagement with the library, so kind of that public presence. Yeah, community presence.
When you come up to me and you buy a house and you scale, like you take me away, I'll walk in and say, oh, this is so cool. I have the best book. And you just get engaged.
I was like, you know, the door.
Well, I keep going here.
I was just going to say, you're making me Janine, so that's really hard for someone to say. So I a lot of times go to school and stuff, I just tell them to tell me. And so like some wrestling in the school, the street over here, and go, oh, that's
And it all starts from a little
Smiles.
Yeah, excitement.
We do have organizations. And when I first started, I said, what first things I'm going to do when I take over is get rid of the Tootsie Rolls. Because I was tired of eating them. But then I realized that, oh no, that's a vital thing. And when we participated in the town parade and we threw out Tootsie Rolls, everybody's laughing point. Why would you throw out everything else? Because that's what.
We've had one or two kids.
Because you're smart.
That the best thing is
Stress
you have to be doing something, but I'd still be small. I mean, but they're still things they do better. So it's, but I mean, it's individualized awareness of each child.
Making them feel like this is.
So lots of conversation happening, which is wonderful. And I don't want to stop it. But what I want to do as a large group now is I want us to talk about what your table came up with, a few points. All right? I have bubbles here. I think the answer to life sometimes are bubbles. And this bubble wand, I'm gonna put some bubbles in the air. We'll talk about this in just a second, okay? So I'm gonna hold on to this bubble right here, if I can. There we go. So, engagement. We've got to be able to define what engagement is. What do you think a child's going to do if I show them that I have a bubble like this? They're gonna try. Would you like to pop this bubble? Oh! So what's the child gonna do now? He's gonna cry. Thanks a lot, Mr. Z. You ruined it. More. Here, let's do it again. Get closer. Very good. The reason why I wanted to show you that, I know it's just a silly little thing, but what we just did is we had contact, we had some engagement happen. And I'm going to give you my overview of engagement, but a lot of times with engagement, especially with kids and parents, we have to remember we got to make it as positive as possible. And we're going to talk about if you pop that bubble, what would happen if it was a negative experience. We're going to talk about that in a second. So I want to go to each table, and whoever wants to be a group speaker, you can do that. Oh, I should tell you we're on camera. We are on camera. I like to videotape my workshops, but you won't be on YouTube. So, yeah, wave. It's all good. So yeah, let's start with this group right here. What kind of definitions or words did we come up with engagement?
I guess a lot of our words had to do with interaction. I think a lot of these other phrases kind of have to do with interaction and positive interaction between two people or a group and that kind of thing. And just the communication and listening, asking questions, all that kind of stuff that goes with that.
Great. Positive interaction, just like our bubble example, okay? This group, whoever wants to be the speaker.
We talked about how it's relational, connected, involved, that there's dialogue, and that doesn't necessarily mean just your vocal dialogue, but excitement, comfort, you have a presence, they feel like they can take ownership of the program themselves, and we had a question mark with eye contact because we realized that not all people would feel comfortable with that sort of engagement.
Right. So talk to me about eye contact. Are you thinking more culturally? Or was there another reason why you had a question of eye contact? I heard it a little bit.
Yeah, I just said, sometimes you have that in story time, that young one that's sitting on their parent's lap, that they might be actively engaged singing or listening, but they're not making eye contact with their
Right.
parents.
Okay. Perfect. Our third table, what do we come up with? Doesn't have to be all of them.
Me? Well, aren't you tired of listening to me already? Well, again, engagements, conversation, recognition, it's an act of respect. When you engage, you're giving them that respect. When they walk in the door and you say hello, you're recognizing them. You're respecting their presence, and they become engaged with you in that facility. We had laughter, all kinds of things you get when you do engage. I can read, Ms. Laura.
When we grab someone by the hand and the kid comes up and says, "Where's the whale books?"
Yeah.
And they're engaged, they're asking, and you go with them and show them. That's totally engaging.
And it's truly you can do it verbally or non-verbally. You
Yes.
can engage in many ways.
Going back to that whale example, how many have had that experience with having a positive engagement with the child, and then they automatically know when they walk through those doors that they feel comfortable and safe to ask a question
What was one of our conversations was the Hey Library lady.
Hey library. In my library, it's Hey Mr. Z.
Yep.
You know, or they have all different names for us, pet names or whatever. And that's okay, because they feel safe to do that. Part of the reason why when I do the bubble thing is I had a parent when I had the bubbles out, and her child popped the bubble, began to yell in story time. And it has always been an experience to add to this type of workshop, because that's a very negative engagement where now story time could be hindered, reading could be hindered almost, activity with people could be hindered because they feel scared to get involved and engaged and excited for something. So we have to be very careful how we do that, how we engage, of course. But for me, engagement, also we have to think of a couple things. We have to think about the relationship with caregiver and the child. Could be a parent for the caregiver, but we all know it could be a different home. So they could have 2 moms, 2 dads, grandparents raising them. They could be a foster family, whoever. We have to, I know it's hard, to understand the dynamics as much as possible of our kids, either through statistics or how many of you just know your families. I mean, you get used to a lot of them, all right? I took a course about a year ago on cultural differences and acceptance. And the core text of that was by Dr. Barbara Rogoff. And I encourage you to read this book. It's cultural differences. I just Googled Barbara Rogoff, R-O-G-O-F-F, and I work in Boone, Iowa. Population is 99%. I'll give it 2%. 98% white, 2% all other demographics and cultures. And when I took this class, I thought, well, I grew up, you know, I was born in Colorado, lived in Texas, had some cultural experience, but I still had this mindset that culture in itself was based on a location. And I was wrong. Culture is values, and it's what children grow up in. All right, that's what Rogoff really discusses. And culture doesn't mean a race entirely. It could mean another special population. I have a learning disability. That's culture. Somebody could be deaf. That's a culture. And so what happens now is in your libraries, in your programs, you have all these different cultures with all these different needs. And I know we're busy librarians, and we're not required through standards like education to really reflect on them. But it's important to have the conversation. It just also depends on your library board, your library policies, what you deem as valuable information. How many of you still, though, find it difficult to connect with families? Anybody? Just a little?
Depends on the family.
Depends on the family? All right. You too?
Well, in Sioux City, we have a really large limited English-speaking population, and it can be very hard to connect with those families.
So with that, do you have people on staff that could help connect with them? I mean,
Well, there's
that
it's
dual
a language
language.
barrier.
A language
There's
barrier.
also just sort of a knowledge barrier. They don't actually know about the different resources
Right.
available to that library.
Okay. I was just having a conversation with the librarian before this, and how difficult it is to really reach some of these populations of various cultures when ourselves and our experiences and what we bring to the table or our library, it's difficult. We don't want to shut them or turn them away. And how best can we find those resources? Today, and most definitely, we're going to talk about engagement with families regardless of their culture, how to bring them into the library. How many of you in story time have had a parent say afterwards, you our culture doesn't read like that. We read differently. Or we don't value literacy like that. Anybody have that experience yet in their profession, in their career? I've had that. Had a Japanese family. We were talking about early literacy, and it's not like I say phonological awareness a lot, and demonstrating core values of rhyme and all those things, and they just said, our value of reading is oral tradition, not buying a book. And then I said, great, because oral tradition represents a narrative skill, which is important to grow your child as a reader. So you gotta find those specific cultural points and not be afraid to give suggestions in order to help with the engagement as well. Okay? And the engagement should enhance interaction between the parent and child. We should do something really important, and this is important. This is really important. We have to open the lines of communication if they are not already there. The activities here today seem very simple. You're going to design, you're going to create, and it's like a Pinterest party. Okay? It could be, which is okay. I like Pinterest. All right? However, I didn't leave that much instructions because I want you to pretend you're a child and a parent, and I want you to think about what communication, what questions you're going to do. Because here's why. Sometimes when I do the family engagement or a family fun program, it's quiet. It's all quiet. Like last night, there's a new movie out called Box Trolls. Funny movie. And I wanted to take all these boxes and use some innovation, have the kids create a box troll. This little girl was so cute. She wore her box home. But when we did this activity, some of the parents left the program. It's called Family Fun at my library. And I was by myself. You know how it all goes sometimes with library staff not having enough, so you're just like, well, I gotta just do this. Here's what we lost. The communication. The experience, the memory of having time to grow that relationship. So yes, literacy is important to me, early literacy, we all know its importance, but really it's the communication and starting that early on and that connection that matters to me as a librarian. However, we've talked and talked and talked. We got activity 2 now. Let me go down here. I wish I had magic fingers. You can use your same piece of paper. All right, the mediator. It's an important word, and I'm not requiring you to, if you don't want, as a group, I want you to think about what I mean by mediator. And I'll give you an example. So parents here, child's here, and I'm here as a mediator. All right? So I want you to think about how to put that into words. Or if you want to draw on little people and put them in and put mediator, you can do that as well. Okay? Maybe I'll understand that. I'm going to give you just a few moments on that, and then we'll talk as a group. Anybody have questions? I'm talking and talking and talking, so please interrupt. Okay? Break! No.
It's another big word.
So basically, what you want is
The 2 sides.
what does our role
Yeah,
as mediator look
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to us?
Yep. What does your role as a mediator look like? If you and you can go as far as saying how you want to define a mediator.
That wasn't even a librarian, that was the parent wanting to make sure that their child was following real things, finding out to be instructed. So, that's the parents' concern. So at the beginning, we were there to say, okay, if you do some of these things, so parents like that, the kid has to sit on the lap, and then being the disruptive one.
Everybody covered both sides.
Yeah, so I think that would be,
Bring it together.
Kind of those two.
Rule
even, but you know, kind of the barrier setter, because, you know, I'm sure there's a good term for that. Yeah, like setting the boundaries.
I understand, and it's, you know, we had one that was really Walking Dead.
I said, I don't know right
At the same time, I'm really bad about like, this is how we're gonna describe you, and I'm like, stop, but it's okay, it's okay. It's okay if your rainbow is all purple.
Yeah.
The city administrator.
You know, we're not mediators. That feeling, everybody participates in parents' jams. It was running through my mind.
Well, I've been doing my job for about 6 months. The only person here is that he took over for that situation, so he's very like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm like,
Yesterday, she was the only person. She was like, oh, do we really want to go there or not? Just starting, you can have somebody that is reach across. You're getting
But, you know, I was at the Washington Zoo in Washington DC, and this family was doing, and they're watching it. So that was a great trip to be at the zoo. And we I love you. You are a fabulous parent, and you keep doing that. And it happened to be a very good moment. I was there.
I came from where I came from before. There's 7 board members and only 1 board member. How is that even possible? I was like,
That is true. No parents.
So I brought some puppets because I love them, and I'm a children's librarian, of course. And I would love to discuss mediator with somebody being a sheep and somebody being a gopher? Beaver. It's a beaver. Got the tail, Mr. Z. You know, you can just, if you want it, like I said, I have more children's, some of us are children's librarians, or if you want to be active with the puppet and just speak your definition, that's okay. I'm just trying to liven up the show, everybody. Because I know that yes, that could be what a mediator does, yes. Because I know that the beginning part of this is a lot of conversation and talking. It's not the fun activities and stuff, but this is really important for us. So I did give you some puppets, or a puppet, for you to take, but if somebody wants to be a sheep and get their definition, And then I have this guy over here. What did we say he was?
I think it's groundhog.
Groundhog. Well, our friend here. You can be that. Who would like to be a sheep? Anybody? You want me to be a sheep? Anybody? I see Miss Gail over there. Okay. And you can give it, you can do character voices with it. So what's a mediator, Mr. Sheep?
Well, our group decided that a mediator is a facilitator, someone who tries to make everyone comfortable and sets boundaries, and can serve as the, she said, bridge. I like bridges.
That's some job. Okay, round of applause. That was great. Who wants to be this guy? Now somebody does. Or who wants to be the dog?
I already did. I went, woof,
Who wants to do it? Quickly. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
What's a mediator, Miss Laura?
A mediator is someone who engages the parents with the child. They reinforce and encourage parents to do things that help kids learn. They help explain why the kid wants to hear the story 65 times, and it's okay, the kid is not broken.
Excellent. So, you guys, all those definitions are correct. In our middle table over here, what did we come up with?
Ditto, ditto.
Ditto, ditto? Well, that's simple. Or woof, woof is right. So, a mediator, I'm going to put my box. Everything's correct. How I also interpret a mediator is a transitional person, because the child, and I think it was the third table here, or first, however order, that was talking about when children come out of the home and go to different community centers or places like the library. It could be a new safe place. We've got to start with that. But it allows them to transition to a place where they feel secure, and they could maybe unveil or talk about things that maybe they don't otherwise do at home. And how many of you have acted like a counselor or therapist in your role before? Anybody? Or have heard different things from children that you may otherwise say, oh, maybe we shouldn't talk about this. All right? Yes. The mediator, I like to think of a mediator as a box too. Actually, the child is a box. This box that you can see has nothing inside of it. The child is trying to fill it with the world. All right? And us as the mediator, as librarians, as positive professionals, we want to fill it with good experiences. All right? We want to be the bridge for them to feel confident that they can do that. All right? I will also say that the community, the overall community, can be the mediator too. All right? How many safe zone right here, even though there's a camera. So but how many of you are in a community that necessarily doesn't understand some of its citizens? Okay, I'll do that. And you don't have to answer, by the way. I should have said that. But I'm going to admit that too. What I mean is, like in Boone, we have Chicago. There's an exodus going on in Chicago, and we have in Boone a lot of Chicagoans moving in, and they have a whole different culture, whole different way of doing things. But as a mediator, it is our role to try our best to understand it. Also to go over policy and rule. We've had to, go with law enforcement and do all multiple things like that. But how do we bring them into the library and engage at that level too? All right. I know a lot of our activities here are for little ones, but we have a progression, don't we? We start as children and we go on up. We should not go children, stop, teenagers, we don't want them. Back to adults. That's not going to work. they were all teenagers. You know what? I don't work with young adults anymore. I was a quirky young adult. Look at my shirt. No, I'm joking. But I can tell you, young adult is a discovery time, and it's an important one. But engagement can happen with that. And you know what? Engagement with parent and child as a young adult, I know it kind of sounds silly, can still happen too at some degree. But that is a little bit later. Okay, now we come to more exciting terms. Told you I'm not going to lecture, but I do believe in theory. I do believe in putting research towards something. So we talked about as a group what a mediator is. So the question on the side says, who is or should be a child's primary mediator? Anybody want to shout out an answer? There's not a right answer, by the way.
Parents.
The parents? Some people, I know that I said there's not right. However, the parents may not be available in their life. Some people actually say the library or whatever setting they're in. So now we come with these terms. This SR and the SOR and the SHOR. Like, woo-hoo! I mean, it's not like I'm driving, because I'm driving today trying to go over this presentation. I'm cool. So I'm just like, SR is Pavlovian theory, woo! And then it's like, SOR is Piaget theory, and it's like, this isn't working. All right? And if you want to doodle, that's okay. But let's go over some of the SR. How many are familiar with Pavlov's law? Pavlov's theory of the dogs and the salivation. Okay? You're like, wait a second, this is a library conference. Are you telling me that children have to salivate during their engagement? Maybe they are like dogs and they get so excited. They could. I've seen some, they drool. Okay? But Pavlov's theory is important because here's what happens. It is like a referee blowing a whistle. And what happens once they blow the whistle? They stop, and the players know something what to do. And that's important with understanding engagement, but we should take it a step further to go to the Piaget model. Piaget, how many are familiar with some Piaget? A little bit? It's okay, we're not going to go through a big lesson here. So the SOR is organism, and it's the consciousness, and it's the R, which is actually learner. Okay? So the stimulus right here, in their world they're currently at, then gets beamed by the organism, the child, and then there is something learned. There's a response learned. Okay? And that's important. But now we need to take it a step further to the Ferguson and the velocity theory. Anybody familiar with those specific theories? Okay, we're going to learn. I'm gonna have to look at my notes a little bit here. But Verlovsky especially came up with the zone of proximal development, which is what a child can achieve with guidance by a skilled person. Okay? And that's important in engagement because of the word guidance. As a mediator, as a library, we can guide them. All right? And with the SO, it is a transitional period that this does happen, that children venture in school and in library environments that they have to feel confident that they are safe and they're provided a framework for learning to ensure that their culture is respected and their learning style is respected. How many, with the mediator importance, how many of you talk to some of your kids about their learning style? Anybody? Or talk to their parents about their learning style? Is that something, yeah? Okay. Anybody else? And do you want me to, let me go a little more in depth about style, okay? We have this cool guy, his name is Howard Gardner. Love Howard Gardner, because he came up with this theory of multiple intelligences. And this is so important as librarians, because unlike schools, who have to follow standards, Common Core, which are important, I see, to a point. We get story time and we get to use different manipulatives like puppets and music and dance. And what that does is that will translate into a child's learning, okay? And that's what this bottom line really talks about, the multiple intelligences. When we do family engagement, what you're gonna do today, Google Howard Gardner, take the test for yourself and see where you're at. There's different layers of intelligences. There's the mathematical and the logical and the artistic, and it goes on and on. Okay, introvert, extrovert, or intra, excuse me. Why that's important to me when I think of assessment is because of the diversity of kids that come into our room, into our programs. What then happens is that gets translated to, maybe the story time needs to be branched out, and we need to do a separate program, still integrating different children, but really more focused. Example, how many of you provide a program for sensory processing disorders, autism? Anybody provide programs like that?
Well, we're in the process. We've started.
Great.
But we're in the process, and what we've actually done is connected with our local school system, and they're going through some training, and we've written the grants to get about $4,000 worth of special equipment.
That's
and
wonderful.
sensory different equipments to help use between all of us.
Yes. I bring up that one just because I just started a sensory one, and actually these ladies right here, I took their workshop, so they really gave me some spark to do that. They're good contact. It has been an amazing experience to see unique children see the world differently, and then I come back and say, I do see it differently, and that's okay. And unfortunately, I will say this, mediator will multiply, because it will be us as a mediator, and then all of a sudden they go to school, and then they have the school and the teachers as well. And sometimes those mediators will evaluate that child and say, you're just not, it's not working. You're not seeing things the way I want you to see them. The assessments are showing this, and I'm not going to get on a whole cycle on that. But what I am saying is if we can empower ourselves from the very beginning to be that organization, that library in our community that says, yes, we welcome all children to our programs from the very beginning, and then we work with those parents to empower them to become advocates for their child's learning, we've done something amazing. I know, some of you are like, this could be a scary type of shoes to fill. Who cares? That's okay. Advocacy is huge. It's important to do that. So, any questions on the exciting theories up there? I know they seem thrilling.
I don't really understand what the H is.
The H in itself is, how do I put this? It's human, okay? So the stimulus goes to a different human. So it goes to us as a librarian. Then we take that to the organism, and the organism then comes back to us, and I'm using the term, I'll put it more.
So our organism would be our child.
Yes. And then they look to us and say, hey, am I interpreting this? Is this okay? Is this all right? Because that's important as a mediator at this level of early childhood. They want some reassurance, and then there's a response to that as well. All right? Again, I too sometimes get those a little mixed up, but Google them. They are important. And I will say that Fergustein, this is important. Maybe I'm saying his name wrong. I'm not a professor, it's okay. Well, that's not okay. But here's the importance about him, is social interaction. Gotta have that with our engagement. Because our programs, we're serving the community, and these kids are coming in not for a single program for them. They're coming in for a program for other kids, with other kids, I should say. And that can be difficult. When I started, I did the sensory enhanced story time, that's what we're calling it. It's an integrated program. It's not just for those with autism, but also those without or sensory processing, so that they can understand that our world is made up of what? Different cultures, different beings, and how do we work together on that. Now there's trial and error with that, but the social interaction is a big piece, because then, like I said, the transition happens, and parents have to go away when they're at school. Not forever. I'm going to do a trivia question, just because we've gone over a lot of theory and stuff, but it's a fun trivia question. And it's kind of relatable to our conversation here. How many of you know a little bit of the history of Winnie the Pooh? What you know about it? Do you know why his name is called Winnie the Pooh?
No, that I know.
Okay, that's okay. I was driving here again. I was just like, and I was like, last night I was thinking, okay, what kind of trivia question can I give them? And I love children's books. And Winnie the Pooh, the reason why I wanted to give a trivia on him is because he represents to me child innocence in some degree, at the core of something. But he starts we start looking at him as a child, and it's a progression, and you can look at him as an adult and feel comforted. At least for me. Again, we all have our childhood heroes and stuff like that. But Winnie the Pooh is interesting because the word, or the name Winnie, comes from a black bear, but Pooh actually comes from a swan. And I just find that rather interesting. That the name of Winnie the Pooh is both a bear and a swan. And to me, again, this is maybe taking it too literally, or analyzing it too much, but it could really look at it as different. It's two creatures, they do different things, but put together, there's this happy-go-lucky bear that just needs honey. That's all. Just give him a pot of honey. I'm sorry, some of you are like, don't write that in your notes. It was just a shortcut just to get rid of some of our little conversation over here, because now we're going to talk about assessment. All right, how many of you do assessments on your programs? Do reports? Of course you do. Some of them, do you do daily statistics? Let me ask that question. Okay, and directors in here then, however, I mean, like our director, she collects those, we put them on an Excel spreadsheet, then we hand them out to the board, or, well, and the city, if that's a whole different story. If they so choose to want to look at some of those. But engagement between the child and the caregiver. So I got a large group question. What does the word quality mean outside of a data measurement? Okay, what is good quality data? What is that to you? What would it? Is it a number, which is quantitative? Is it a story, which is qualitative? Or is it a mix? What is good quality data? What should it show about our programs in our library? Anybody want to take a stab at that?
For me, it would mean something that helps us grow or learn.
Okay.
Something that's worthwhile knowing about.
Something to grow, something to learn from.
Something that makes an impact, be it qualitative, quantitative, or anecdotal. Something that has some impact to show this is why it matters. This is why what we do is important.
Excellent. Anybody else?
We use numbers, because those are what's important to the state. It's important.
Yeah.
Our accreditation numbers and all those kinds of things. But when we're actually evaluating whether or not to proceed with the program, I want how the impact is working. I don't care if there's only 3 kids at that story time. If it is, you are spending quality time with them and they all of a sudden have learned their sight words after 8 weeks, I'm a pretty happy camper. If that 3 kids have gotten something from you. Has that impacted that they've had a lap to sit on that they haven't had at home? Have they gotten to use glitter, which they would never get to use at home? Have they painted? Have they touched things? Have they? Yeah, see,
No, we're laughing because you actually use glitter at your library.
I use glitter all the time, Miss Becky. I will always use glitter at my library. Always we use glitter. Always.
Uh-oh, it's on camera.
In fact, we're building our new building, and they have, I have agreed to let one room be glitter-free, but the rest of it is up for glitter. But, you have to see what that impact is, whether it's adult programming, children's programming, teen programming. I look for that impact because that's what I sell to the public.
I absolutely agree with everybody. And I will say, not in a role of administration, it becomes difficult for me sometimes because I have a good story, and they're all saved, or I have good products of images and pictures of resources and materials of the kids, what they designed and created, and I said, look at the impact that this is having, or more of a longitudinal. I know I've only been there 3 years, some of you have been there longer than me, and you've been able to see a progression of these kids from infant maybe all the way on up to high school. And that is an impact. And it becomes quite difficult though, doesn't it, when we are discussing money and dollars and all that fun stuff. As a children's librarian, thank goodness I'm not in administration, because it's just like, literacy is important, for example. We all know that, but it's how we sell it, what our numbers look like. And with our programming type, with the programs here today, that our engagement, how do we show and attest that we're growing families in our community? That's important too. And again, it's maybe putting ourselves in a different seat than maybe we thought before, that we are not only enhancing community, but future generations of library patrons, not only readers, okay, library users. So we have assessments, and we're going to go over some questions here. I know, question. That's okay. So, observational, qualitative tool. Okay? So what I want us to do, let me just click on here real quick. Okay. So we're going to answer questions. And these questions are for the top question, I should say, the top set of questions. Those are for between a child and a caregiver. Questions like, you would try to ask these questions. What is engagement like at home? How does a caregiver view their child's health and well-being? What is their role in their child's education? What is the family supportive system? Is their home prepared for engagement, like a home library? Okay, when I wrote this up, and I've done this workshop before, some librarians were like, wait a second, these are really in-depth questions. These are really getting at the core of something. Is it my right to ask? You know, it's however comfortable you are with your patrons. If you're not comfortable asking these questions, I'm not going to mandate that this is what you should do. It's questions that I do ask, though, because it really helps me evaluate if I need to change something in my program. Okay? And then we're going to talk about the next set of questions, which is more about your assessment on your environment with your children. So, you have 1, 2, 3 groups. As a group, you can answer all of them, but that might take a while. So I would just choose a question, and if we have multiple questions chosen, I guess that's fine. There's 5 questions for the top. So I'm going to hand out this piece of paper here, and you guys can choose a question and take some time to answer. And again, if you need to use restroom or anything,
These questions are observational. What is the engagement capacity? What is the child well-being? What is your role in the child education?
oh, okay.
Is their home
What is their role in their
for
child's
engagement?
What is the family supportive system? And is their home prepared for
So that's-
engagement? Example, an at-home library.
The other one is, okay, N2B4, what is the communication channel between the children? Is the classroom set up for diversity of learners?
For engagement.
How do we get into how
And I probably will race through the others that we don't answer, or I can show you an answer.
I shared.
Well, this would be urgent people like it. Teaching school librarians. We're taking from schools.
Her first home visit. I mean, I don't think it's easy to say, God, your questions on the machine. She's got a questions. Actually, you know, how they won't answer.
like, you're thinking about story time kids, like knowing what.
And that to me is a evaluation that we're working with story times they're gonna get, especially like my kids, low community, low income, that don't think. Well, I grew up with books, and our library was big, and when I started at the library, it totally amazed me when people. I have more books in my library than this library has for me. We need to do something about it.
Just from the way they're interacting as a kid.
They still kind of absorb it home. And
Listen to what we do.
I tried to. You can see literacy.
Those are all these things and draw some application
Really
without.
Most of the time we can do this.
As an administrator,
I guess that's my
Yeah, I'm looking at asking questions. Like I said, the only thing would be clear that, like, at home, just kind of put it better context and more of like, some books to have at home, Or do you do less than? Yeah.
Like what you do, what you do for fun. Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite book? Have one in their face.
Yeah, if they don't have one,
They love to see one.
Yeah.
And they also teaching.
Yeah, and I think being from a small maybe we're about 2,900. I'm sure if I started asking these questions, people would be completely turned off.
Right.
It wasn't unusual.
As I say, they already know.
Yeah.
You can see them on stage and we know.
Yeah.
Head Start or something, kids sit down with some of those things, but that can we read more in the library?
Then you know.
Yes.
Exposed to. I remember.
When I do outreach or daycare, the kids have that one, have that colors, when they see the faces of the other kids, and they're standing there. I mean, even at 4 or 5 years, it's that they know they have.
Native Spanish speakers. Yeah.
Even.
Or when we look to the kid, this is coming up, technology, and the they're looking for. Because I bet now, possible, but there's, it's. And someone then probably need it. Yeah, I mean, you should too.
Reading like
Yeah.
Books that aren't even there at all.
Right.
they'll say, they can't have a book, just make it fun like that.
But that's
The ones with the fast coming to your lab and they take your kids in there with them.
So when they leave their kids over by the crayons and they, you're so busy for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's right, those are the kids that really, yeah.
The mom who wears pajamas, they're so first right to work. At least they're coming.
Yeah.
Bigger chapters.
be aware of
Yeah, I've been watching which is very interesting. I think one thing, the father will go in because it was like observation. The books. Anyway, sorry. But then I've got another friend who follows the old model. To encourage those kinds of books that we submit. But you can pick up, and I think those are good questions to think about. And you can
Because sometimes it will make a difference in how they react to social practice.
Well, he was talking about yeah, I had a kid this summer. They came in and he stayed a little bit later and we're going to craft it into sort of, there's some samples that give you 5 more minutes. And they start talking about how Dad left the other day and he hasn't seen him all week and he just called. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're 5. Such a great life. And he just kind of goes, oh, is your dog still getting fed? And I was like, here's a book.
When you get ready to get rid of it, you can actually have it, which is okay.
As always, lively conversations, but let's go ahead and just kind of go back. You want to finish? Okay. Well, let's talk about the top questions. How about the middle table? What question did you like to have lots of conversation on? Or still having conversations? I will come back to middle table. I'm glad that you're having these conversations. This is great. Come to this table. Whatever question or conversation.
Well, I guess what we all kind of talked about that that top half of questions, they would all make us pretty uncomfortable to ask them of people. And we would more just use them as kind of guidelines for ourselves to make observations.
Okay, very good.
You can tell, like these guys were saying, you can tell by how a kid talks and if they know their colors and that kind of stuff, what kind of support they're getting at home, and if they have books. And she was saying, she was asking a kid, well, what about this book? Oh, I have that at home. What about this book? Well, we have that one at home. So that kid has really got a good support system. So, yeah, especially, small town.
Sure.
Asking those questions of someone would make me pretty uncomfortable, but, there's lots of ways to observe what's going on.
And there's ways to elicit the information without asking the question directly. Yeah. Oh yeah, how are things going? You said something about grandma was coming. How did that go?
Right. Very good. We'll come to the bottom half, and how many have looked over the bottom half questions? That was. If not, we'll have a chance to do that. Middle table. What would you like to talk about with the top question?
Well, we did talk about the interaction at home. I taught preschool for 15 years, and I could tell at the beginning of the school year how many of those kids in that classroom had been exposed to books before they came to me. And at the beginning of the year, you were lucky to read a short story with 1 or 2 words on a page. But by the end of the year, I could sit and read 5, 6 books in that 15-minute period and have the kids go, another one, read another one. And during work time, when they have a choice of playing anywhere in the room, it was unique to find them sitting and reading to each other when they could have been playing with anything. So you did your job in exposing them to language. And I had shared a comment with them that they wanted me to share. My oldest daughter is about 35, and my dad had died about 3 years ago, and she had just asked my mom, Grandma, do you still have such and such book? And I don't even remember the title. And my mom's like, yeah. Why? And she said, well, when you're done with it, can I have it? And my mom's like, sure, but why that particular book? You can have it now. She said, well, as I was growing up, Grandpa used to always read that to me every time I came to visit. And I didn't know until 5 years ago that Grandpa didn't know how to read.
Oh, wow.
And she says, how did Grandpa read that to me? Because I remember him specifically reading that book, and my mom said, well, he'd always heard the older kids reading it, and he just remembered it. And so you didn't know any different. He'd sit you on your lap. So it didn't matter if the male person in that child's life actually knows how to read or not. Just the simple fact of having them on their lap and that one-to-one bonding and opening the book from front to back, reading, you know, from top to bottom, those are all reading skills that you learn whether you can read or not. And I think we need to remember that with our cultures, that even if our Spanish-speaking families can't read to that child, they can still open that book, look at those pictures and say, can you find the cow, can you find the pig, what's the pig say, what's the cow say? And still make up a story with those words.
And you bring up a really good point. I always encourage families to speak in the language that the child's home is in. So if it's Spanish, speaking in Spanish. If it's French, speaking French. So yeah, and utilizing books differently with pictures is as important, if not more important, than just going by paragraph and line by line. It's an awesome story. Thanks for sharing that. Last table. Last but not least, but okay.
So we sat down and said, hey, you know, this is not only you by yourself, but we could get you to come into the story time room. And it started out, he would sit there on his laptop and slowly kind of started listening to stories, and eventually it's gotten to where he gets down on the floor when we do the craft and the coloring page, and he and Macy work together.
That's wonderful. Isn't it fun though to see males get into it? I know moms are great. I mean, they're superheroes. But dads they're funny sometimes too. I mean, when they first start off, you know, and then they come to Mr. Z story time, it's like, woo, let's party. And they're just like, oh, I can get loose and have fun and engage with my child, and it's okay. There was something I was going to say about the top tier. This table right here. You bring up a good point. These questions, I also would not do a formal interview with a parent. When I do this workshop sometimes with providers, they have a different setting and a different role. They see these parents and they have to ask these questions for DHS purposes and stuff. For a librarian, it is observational, most definitely. Informal observation, coming to story time, understanding if a child knows their colors or is working on their alphabet, social interaction, behavioral, whatever it may be. As a library, here's what's powerful about us. We are a resource hub. So our job is to provide resources. And so for us in the children's department, my department is 12,000 square feet. It's one of 3 floors. I don't know if anybody's been in the Boone Library. And one section is the parenting section, parenting zone. And in that section are resources on reading and connection with child and whatever developmental needs are. And I allow the parent the opportunity to invest their time to learn that stuff. If they come to me with a question, like, hey, I didn't know about this about reading, or, hey, is this a good play activity for my child? Yes. But if they were to come to me with questions, of course, about abuse or anything, I would, for us, it's a whole different policy issue and all that stuff. So this is truly focusing on engagement, observation, and you bring up a good point, Laura, in Family Fun, which is our sensory-based programming with activities like this. I will say to parents, you can't leave, and also to story time, but most definitely with Family Fun, you can't leave this program because it's Family Fun. You gotta have fun with child, not me. I'm gonna have fun with you, but it's an investment piece as well. So having those conversations and setting the example is important, okay? So we have the engagement between the child and the caregiver, or their parent. And then now we're gonna look at the bottom half, which is really looking at, I say classroom here, which is actually your library or story time room. So what is the communication, what is your communication between your children? Is your classroom or library or story time room set up for diversity of learners? Is there a supportive system that your library has? We can talk, I can go into depth about that a little bit. And how do we begin to empower this caregiver, this parent, to be an advocate? Because I think that's part of our role informally. I'm not saying, again, sit down with them and say, you need to say this, this, and that. I'm saying that we should, in story time, set the example that this is how important reading is. And when they transition to preschool education, you may want to ask, hey, what's the connection like with the library at this center? What kind of story times do you do here? Mr. Z does a lot of puppets and music and all that. Do you have little libraries, and how much books are in it as well? I'm not afraid to tell that to parents too. So take some time to do bottom half. You can choose any question, or you can go off topic and think of something else. So give you some time. If you need a stretch, don't worry, stretch. I'll get on spaghetti dance at the end. All right.
How's the communication channel between the children? Is the library set up for diversity of libraries? Or libraries in the library? How do we give some power to caregivers? I haven't seen that.
And so, some children did not run whatever I had. But she has kids books. And one of the police station, and it's like, you would hit on anything. And that's a lot more work. It really reached out to the I don't know what I was thinking, how long would you have?
We had it, like, usually I discussed it at the McDonald's to get so I used to live in Southwest Kansas, and so like Spanglish, and I was like, oh, let's take it back to Southwest Kansas. It's like the same, sensory thing. I've got homemade Play-Doh that's got a really nice scent to it. Do you use it like in your? No, I use essential oils. Inclusion channel. And so you've got like a little sensory. Plus, I always have sensory talk. But it's a very system. One of my the great things that you empower caregivers to kind of say, because I do like this, like empowering my caregivers to advocate, especially when I start that kind of stuff in preschool. That's probably the easiest way for us to start. To empowering those initial caregivers, whether it's teachers and stuff, and then pass it on to our parents. Sounds like it's kind of the easy for us. I know the easiest for us, because then we give stuff to them and then they get to it. We can pay for them. That's cool. But we always have some sensory things out there.
I know this summer looks like that. I go to stations like that. And it was really good to meet and to see and you set up with different centers and give them time.
And it's been some of my mother's all over the time. But so much is exciting. So I think for my kids, like the arts, those cultural differences. For us, our diversity comes more with teachers. We have a large, probably 55 to 75-year-old that come to the library. And we just got done moving almost every single one in the library. And we moved our large prints actually by the adult books. And some of those adults had no idea that we had public computers, because the public computers are open to adults. And we had, I had a lady that came in and she said, "This is too much for us to use?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "How long has this been there?" And I was like, "Probably several years." And she was like, "I had no idea," because she never went to that size. And it was just like, believe it. But and we have a, like, as most libraries do, we now have a large network. And that really brings in more of a diverse population. That's what 20 students are doing more often.
With a primary. She knows how to move.
That's what I'm laughing at. Some of the books were exciting. I was working at the desk with somebody was looking at her audiobooks because they were taking a trip. She was about a lot of books. There's Aragon. They must have wrote a book about the movie. I about fell out of my chair. It's like,
Something we've done, story guides, Stier reads 12. Support them because
Okay, my friends, we have great conversations, of course. Let's go around and if you want to talk about a question or what you've been talking about, that would be great. So I'll start with middle table. Whoever wants to speak.
I was just saying, I was a children's librarian for 10 years, and I did story time and read my stories and did my transitions, and we had a great old time. But I always ended with the same one craft or whatever for everybody. And Judy, all of her own volition, sets up centers all over her room. And so at the end of story time, it's not just one craft. There's a little reading corner, or there might be a coloring table or a sensory station. And I just think that totally supports the diversity of learning. I did not consider that in my program, but she's fabulous at thinking outside the box.
Wonderful. That's great. All right, let's do this table right here at the end, by the doors. First table. With the elephant. I'm just joking. Whoever wants to speak.
We really did talk a lot about probably what we were supposed to be talking
Oh,
about.
that's okay. Tell me what, it's okay.
Well, we just talked about the libraries that had children, Spanish speaking or English. It's all you, so you have to tell us about it.
We do prime time family reading time, which is a project with the Louisiana Endowment for Humanities, trying to get kids ages 6 to 10 who struggle with reading to sit down with their parents and read, so that we help build those bonds between them, help the kids learn that reading is important, parents can model the behavior. We've chosen the bilingual route because we're in Fremont. Do I need to explain? Probably for somebody from Iowa. Fremont has a growing Hispanic population and an ordinance which is aimed at targeting people believed to be in the country illegally.
Okay.
Ordinance 5165. And there's a lot of fear and stuff in the community. And so we wanted to open our doors and make sure that those families knew that the library was not a scary place. And so this is our fourth go around, and we've got families spreading the word saying, you haven't been coming, you need to get back here. You missed last week, where were you? You need to be here, you missed the best time. And we have families who skip school carnivals because prime time is more important.
And that's a national program, the Prime Time?
It came from Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities, and it's sponsored by Humanities Nebraska.
Okay.
There are programs in at least 24 communities across the state. And I believe it has gone national, but I can't speak to it.
Yeah, I know that one of the libraries I worked in Kansas, we have it too.
Yeah.
So Google Prime Time.
It's primetime family reading time. I'm here all week if you need to ask any questions.
Yeah.
And I will be at the Missouri booth because I'm the liaison between Nebraska and Missouri. So if you can't remember where you saw me, that's one place to find me.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And our last table? Number one.
Well, one thing I mentioned, our library has come up with a bookmark that says what you can come to the library and do without a library card. So if the people live outside the city limits and have to pay or whatever the situation, they can see the resources available that they can just come in and take advantage of. Of course, hanging out, using computers, and on and on.
Right. That's a great idea. I'm taking it back.
And then we should put the bookmarks in random places around the community, like gas stations and auto parts stores, just random places that we thought we'd get people that aren't library users.
Right. That's fantastic. Great stuff, guys. I'm going to go back. We were talking a lot about diversity of learners, and I know I'm on film, and I won't. I don't care. I'm going to read from the story. How many have read Giraffes Can't Dance? Who's heard of this story? Okay. I did turn on the mic because I'll project my voice. So this is about Gerald the giraffe. And Gerald is, he runs around, he has buckled knees. Poor guy. And he goes to the jungle dance like this, okay? And everybody at the jungle dance, let me tell you, they're doing something special. They're dancing. See all his friends? He's got warhogs, he's got the lions, and he's got the rhinoceros. And so, of course, Gerald thinks what? That he has to dance. So let's see here. I'll go through this just a second. The chimps all did a cha-cha-cha with a very Latin feel, and 8 baboons then teamed up for a splendid Scottish reel. Cha-cha-cha. And if you want to do the hand movements, it's okay. Here we go. Gerald swallowed bravely as he walked toward the floor, but the lions saw him coming, and then they soon began to roll. I hope that woke up the next room. Hey, look at clumsy Gerald, the animals all sneered. Giraffes can't dance, you silly fool. Oh, Gerald, you're so weird. I'm going to end, I want you to read that story. I'm going to end on that. I know that sounds terrible of me to end. I don't know. I'm going to turn this off now. It's like careless. I'm ending on that because diversity. That's okay. We're good. Diversity of learners, as we have talked about, can discuss learning style, culture, and also accept. We have to put in the word acceptance of the social environment. All right. How warm and welcome did Gerald feel at first with his jungle friends? What happened? Did he feel excited to dance? He didn't. Okay. Same thing with these families. If they walk into our doors from in the town, out of the town, and the first thing they get is a glare, a stare, start questioning, whatever. I mean, Or I had this one library professional, and they don't work with me anymore. They would follow them, like these people, and they would do this. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're just people, and they're probably interested, you know, about our library resources. So it's the environment, how comfortable that we make it feel, story time environment, the library in general. That goes all the way up to administration, okay? Policies, how are those written? Is culture recognized in those policies? Is our long-range plan, is that recognized? And again, this is coming from somebody who's in a 98% white community. And I said to my director, we got to start adding some language about culture, okay? And that means collection as well, okay? So, coming on over here, so assessment, it's always ongoing. We've talked about those questions, and you have to be observers of your assessment, all right? And we've got to be able to have time to set up our settings, okay, for this to happen, all right? So early childhood in itself and in the research is really shifted to the understanding that children should be in a classroom or in a library that reflects an understanding of what? An understanding of them, okay, who they are, all right? See you later, friends. You're welcome. You have to be willing to have that now. We're educational settings, we're early childhood settings, all right? How many have in their long-range plans with about early childhood or early literacy? How many have early literacy in their long range? Okay? All right, how many focus on some of the developmental pieces? Maybe, within the small bullet points. Anybody? Okay, great. All right, just depends on all libraries and stuff. That's not a bad thing if you don't. The biggest thing, though, is that your library should really reflect the patrons that you serve and those children. So what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about expanding the system, okay? This is an exciting topic for me. I do another workshop about community partnerships and outreach programming, and I would love to do that on top of this, but we don't have time, but that's okay. So this is, I want us to have a large group conversation briefly about supportive networks, all right? So you've got the library, talked about the parents. Now we're going to break the wall down, not literally, somebody really thought. Not literally. Break down that wall and go out to the community. Let me do a case study about my library briefly. So 12,000 is in my population, and I started there 3 years ago. They had some outreach, okay? And I'll talk about the supportive unit in just a second. Because outreach to me is my network of support to enhance engagement. So I go to 14 different sites each month, on top of being, the in-house programming director person, and that will reach an additional 1,200 kids, okay? These kids are ones that I do not see after I leave them, unfortunately, from their center. The engagement will then come by me going to the center and saying to the center director or preschool director, whoever, we need to have the family engagement night. We at the center, but I would like it at the library. So we host that center and those families at the library. They get a tour, they get a car, they get whatever, and then they get conversations like we're having here today. All right? So the supportive network for me really is the preschools, it's the daycares. We've got to go a little bit beyond that. I know ALA is really big about business community. I'll give you my newest connection. And then I want you to share with a large group yours. In November of last year, I was heading home to my folks for Thanksgiving, and I want to have a new partner, and I need to figure out who that's going to be. And I decided, as I looked on Story Street, yes, we do have them, that Habitat for Humanity would be the new partner. And I walked into the director of Habitat and I said, I want to partner with you. And he goes, well, we build homes and you're a library. And I said, I know, we got to be innovative. We got to think beyond that. We got to be creative with this. And here's what happened. This Sunday, they have a new bookshelf for the family, bookcase, huge. And the library is giving them about 25 books because our goal is to start literacy from infant to adult, so the adults will get books as well. And they built a home, so it's a safe shelter, and they now have a community supporter, which is us. Okay, so it all intertwines and interacts. But all our communities are different, and so talk to me about supportive networks. What kind of networks, what kind of connections have we made that help to enhance family engagement? You don't have to raise your hand.
Well, I have been at my library for about 6 months, and in May went and did school visits, and the librarian at the elementary school told me it was the first time in 7 years someone from the library had been to visit them. So that was huge for our community, for the schools to know that they were welcome at the library, and since then we've already had really good interactions, but 7 years is a long time.
That's wonderful, though, that you brought it back, which is good.
Our library went through a very similar thing, and in the last few years, we've been working with them, and we now are in seminars at night that we have 60, 70 people at. They all come in, they get their cards, they do, it's fabulous stuff. And we work a lot with the school librarians, and we donate some time so they can go eat their lunch or go teach a class or whatever, and we help run their library for them. And the kids see us helping each other out, so they, say, oh, we saw the librarians at the school today, and the parents come in and say, that's really cool, and things like that. We also have in our community, we have a few groups that we formed for the entire community to participate in, and one is called the YCAT, and it's youth, children, and teens. And so all of the business partners in town and anybody that has to do with child enrichment, whether it's scouting or 4-H or whoever, the extension office, they all come to the meetings, and we check up on what each other's doing and figure out whatever we can do to help each other achieve what the kids need. So it's kind of cool.
That's fantastic. And what's that called?
We call it YCAP. It's just our name.
Yeah. It's great.
It's kind of fun.
Cool. Anybody else?
We have the Fremont Family Coalition, which is 30 or 40 agencies that support all levels of family, physical safety and literacy. I'm part of the school readiness committee. We just hosted a PBS/NET Ready to Learn event with Curious George, so the one was quite
wonderful,
and had 38 families come in and play with different apps on the iPad, take pictures with Curious George, and did all of that on John C. Fremont Days, which is our big look-to-do festival in July. So
that's fantastic.
That was a great partnership, and we're hoping to repeat that as good.
Well, you bring up a good point, because family engagement can be small and can be large. So small meaning you could have a small group of families, like your story time, and do something very specific, or you could have a community-wide or county-wide event, or you get local organizations involved and partner with them as well. Partnerships are huge with family engagement, because this is how I tell the chamber is always fun to visit. They're funny people, in good ways. But I always tell them, you're a parent or an uncle or a grandparent, and the investment that you can help me with is making sure these kids have a good start in life, all right? And so some of our connections and partnerships with engagement could be monetary as well, for them to support. So think about your networks with engagement, how you can get the local schools involved. Maybe there's an arts council or something that would be able to do puppetry or help donate some supplies, because I know how budget can work. So look outside the box, think outside the box. Don't just make it that the library is putting this of importance. I'm sure lots of organizations are doing that or want to do it, and maybe they want to partner as well. We just have, in our county, We don't have, we're trying to form a Boone County library organization because there's only 3 libraries, and we're what I like to call, we're the Mecca, because we're the huge library, which is great. But our thought is, how can we help each other with family engagement, especially? How can we help with summer reading? How can we help with the budget issues, if there is any, how can we support our marketing, all right? Why should we necessarily be in competition with each other? I know that was a fun conversation. But I'm going to briefly go back to discovering your learner, okay? We talked about this. This is kind of going beyond just the 5 senses, all right? Lecture versus experience. I hope today that lecture is not all that I have given you, because we are going to get to the activities, but that interaction happened, and that with the interaction came experience that you are taking back. Okay, so this is the cycle. We've got an experience, we're going to share the experience, we're going to process that experience, we're going to generalize, and we're going to apply it. All right? That happens on a daily basis. And this is what happens with an engagement. There's an experience that's going to go on, everybody's going to share that experience, a process of the experience is going to happen, something's going to be generalized, and then they're going to apply it. The application is a really important one. My hope is that when engagement happens, that it will happen at home. That's the application piece. That they're not, it's good to think, wow, in the community, the library wants us to connect. But I hope that when they go home, they say, we can do this together. Johnny or Danny, I don't know, whoever, okay? But it can be really difficult though, because this is what I'll hear. Mr. Z, we're poor, so how do I do this? How can I work with my child? That's one of the instances. Most everything in here, I hope, is within either in a kitchen, a recyclable thing. Some things have been donated, some things have been purchased, but the goal is that for them to use their eyes, use this part of their sense, to look around and say, hey, we probably have some of this at home. And how are they innovative and create that? So we talked about Howard Gardner, we talked about, and this is important, intelligence is plural, not singular. Okay? There's multiple. Again, we got to be able to construct our library through our learning centers, which I really like how you talked about creating after your story times different centers. The family story time or the family fun that I have, I read a story, we interact with the story. This is what this table is, a narrative table. And then the activity tables are set up that they get to interact with different intelligences, and the parents get to have those conversations. Very important, very, very important. I know we all know this, I hope. Sometimes I'm a very energetic person, and I'm quick to say, hey guys, we're going to use what Howard Gardner said, which is in multiple intelligences, and this table represents mathematical logic, whatever. And I literally have had parents never come back. It's not that we want to dumb things down. We want to make it fun, and we want to make it understandable to them. We have dual language speakers. They're of course probably not going to understand that. So how can we visually help them understand what that table or center is about? This is important because it happens every week. Parents say, boy, Danny, you're not doing that right. Mr. Z said that table was to judge gravity with marbles with cocoa powder, which is over there. Okay? I don't say language like that. Or you're supposed to use those balloons. You're not supposed to use them as volleyballs. No, you're supposed to maybe do some balloon painting. And what happens is then it kind of destroys the fun, and there's always something wrong. There's never something right. So we got to build that relationship up. That's important. Yay, the brain! This is an anatomy lesson. I didn't bring brains to dissect. Rather, that would be rather interesting. Of course, driving from Iowa to here, that would smell bad. But I could make them. I have dissected a brain, and I've seen all of this, and I put this in there because as librarians, we are smart people, and we deserve to say, hey, we understand the many different parts of our brain that we are helping families or children light up, okay? So this is sensory processing. This is what is important, all right? Amygdala right here most definitely deals with strong emotional memories, okay? Aggression especially is in there, all right? And we've got the hippocampus and we've got the cerebellum right here in the brainstem. These are really important also within the context of autism to understand spectrum disorder, all right? And prefrontal cortex memory, okay? Emotional memory especially with that. I will tell you with frontal cortex, frontal lobe is memory, all right? More short-term memory importance than rather long-term. My father has frontal lobe dementia, and all his short memory is gone, but his long-term memory is there, all right? But it's the memory piece, especially with emotional memory, that is important when working with kids and the kids working with their parent, so that the parent does not create an emotional memory that's harmful. How many of you have given or have had children say of a past experience, and you're like, how do they remember that? They remember that based upon their emotional memory. I truly believe that physical harm is powerful. Emotional harm most definitely has a lot of long-term effects. And I'm not discounting or discrediting physical harm, but emotional harm. And that's because if we don't understand our learners, and parents especially say, yeah, they're behind, they're stupid, they're slow, challenged, that's going to create a scar. Now, believe me, being learning disabled and being labeled that early on still affects me today. So, it's not the end. It's the beginning of fun. I'm excited. Okay. I'm going to walk through some of my programs, kind of what's here today. I did, like I said, when I do workshops like this, I do not put instructions, but I'm always available if you have questions. The materials on the tables are thematic, they're themes, but if you decide, I don't want to use those coffee jugs for bowling, that's what they're for, turkey bowling. Or I don't want to use balloons for painting. I want to do volleyball. I don't care. What I want, I'm holding a parrot, I know. What I want you to do is I want you to do these activities together. And I want you to think, and I hope you write things down, that of questions, conversations between what a parent and child could have. Okay? What open lines of communication could happen. All right? What do we got? 3:22. We've got about 2 hours left. That's a long time. But I want you to take your time, because I hope that at the end we can have some reflection over these activities too. I want you to do the activities. I will say that somebody's going to have to construct a lot of things, all right, in each zone. I purposely did not prepare things because that's part of the activity, all right? I'm going to follow all this stuff. So let's see. Let's go through our activities. We got to go over some questions though. All right, so I'm the parrot. Question 1. You like that? What theme should I use? All right. How many do thematic-based type programming? I do it, but you know what? It can be kind of boring sometimes. It's like, I Googled, we're getting to our fall season, our calendar, and it's like, fall themes, leaves. I'm like, well, that's inventive. Or, and so it's our winter, and it's like snowman. So here's what I learned for my first couple years is, don't make it a phrase. Like, I clearly remember one of my first years, I did Ben Franklin. It was hilarious to watch 4-year-olds. I came dressed as Ben Franklin, and I had a hanger to represent the rod. And it was on the calendar, and it clearly just went over. Make it simple, okay? But go beyond just themes sometimes. Have fun with it. All right, number 2, what story should I use? All right, what story should you use? How many of you go, before you decide your theme maybe, go through your collection and decide on a book? Anybody? Okay, great. Sometimes I do. Sometimes, this is bad, don't do this. I come up with a theme, everything's great, I know what book I want, and then I forgot to get the book, and the day of the program, oops, it's gone. Now what do? Then I try to make up the story, like I try to write it out and pretend I know the whole story, and it's like, well, that's narrative development, that's good, but then it's like, then a kid's gonna check it out and say, Mr. Z, it's not the right book. So try to find your book, all right? And I don't need to go through length and narrative and what type of book. We're all professionals, we know that. What activity can I create? These are the important ones, all right? So what activity? So you take this story, you take this book, all right? And this is one of the examples. How many have read an Arthur Stream book? I've heard of Arthur Stream book. I am a fan of Peter Pan, Sailing Away. I love, I don't know, I just like the art of kids thinking beyond themselves, drifting away into dream world, okay? An Arthur Stream book, or boat, is so powerful because it's about Arthur, and it's about this boat that, of course, he has on his head, all right? And there's a lot of magic that goes on here, all right? And there is a dream boat. And here's what happens, my friends. All of a sudden, Arthur gets drifted away and he gets into his boat. The boat comes alive, all right? There's live action in here. So I started to think, okay, what can I come up and create? Well, I definitely want to do something with boats and water and dreams, and maybe pirates could be something involved in here as well. But be innovative, be creative. Don't just go based upon the subject or theme of the story, okay? And then, what other formats of storytelling can I use? We're professionals. We've had experience with this. How many of you have met just a fun professional, but they sometimes just read word for word, and there's no emotion, there's no excitement? Yes? Yes, I have too. Okay? And that's okay if it works for them, but your audience will definitely pick up on it. If I started reading, "Hey," shouted Arthur, "last night I dreamed about a boat. It was pink." That's just not exciting. All right? Add some emotion to it. Add some excitement. But you know what? Maybe I'm going to take the book. I'm going to put the book aside, and I did this, and I had the conservation create a boat for me. I have cardboard. And I had kids sit in the boat, and we told the story of Arthur and the Stream boat, okay? So that's a whole narrative development that we can get into. So is there a variety between books and other formats? There could be. How many of you read more than one book in some of your programs? Yes? Yep, sometimes I do too. Sometimes I choose one long book and do more music. Just depends on the audience. Got to be prepared, of course, of who's in front of us. So they can get some wild kids. We can. So let's see here. There we go. Book process. This is important. Conversation between a parent and professional. Okay? How many of you take some time, I know we get busy, to walk through the collection with the parents as much as we can? Yeah? All right? Or get those questions and say, hey, what's the great book should I be reading right now? Yeah. That's important, okay? Start that conversation. That in itself is engagement. That even goes without saying that it's not having to be a program. It's just having a conversation. There it is, communication. Talked about communication between child and parent. Now we have communication between parent and professional. Okay? Got to start the process in nonfiction. How many of you add some nonfiction? Or at least show some nonfiction? I do sometimes. It's important, especially for boys. Stories with song. Okay, this is really good for some the autistic aspect, sensory aspect too. We just did yesterday Monster Boogie. I love it. Or Boogie Monster. Had the kids stand up for that story. All right. And big books. How many of you use big books? I love big books. If you can't, I don't know what they would be under. They could be in all different vendors. But big books are really cool because what you can do with them, a lot of times kids go inside the book and you can hug them. I know, it's sappy, but it's cool. All right? So, here we go. I'm going to run through these programs and then I can see some of us are like, okay, Mr. Z, we're done. We want to do activities. All right? So, let's do a walkthrough. All right? Talked about narrative development a lot, family engagement programs, focusing on it. That table over there, and I'll add some more puppets. That is very important for me. You can do an entire engagement program on narrative skill, on puppetry. All right? So taking puppets and activities that you provide are puppets and a craft in various picture books. You can create an entire night with different sections of literature and puppets. And families can make puppets either with popsicle sticks, cotton balls. I put these over here. You're like, what's this? Magnets. You do a magnet story. All right. Actually did. I don't want to show this, but I will. If you give them out a cookie on a cookie sheet. All right. Be inventive as much as you want, but narratives. All right. Yes, a mouse a cookie. All right. And you have your notes, and you can go through the benefits. My apologies for the darkness of the print. So, using everyday objects is an important one for that one. Storm away! That was the title of one of my programs. All right? That's where we used the boat, that's where we made a cloud. How many of you have started integrating some STEM into some of your programs? Anybody? Nobody in here? That's okay. Does anybody know what STEM is? Yes, I think we all do. I will tell you.
For summer reading.
Yes, for summer reading. I will say it should be called STEAM. It's just me. Because arts are important. Also, I think STEM has been around, just like early literacy has been around forever. It's just now more marketable. We've been doing it forever. All right? It's just being marketed and marketed as an important thing for 21st century kids. But this is a really cool one. I have some cups over there, shaving cream. I've got the dye, or actually it's paint, so please roll up your sleeves, please. And what I want you to do with that is create it, design it, think about what kids would want to say, questions that parents may ask, okay? Again, the benefits are on the side. I hope that you can read those, okay? All right? Yes, okay, yeah, great. Fly away. Oh, this was so much fun. All right. I love this program. This was probably my first family program of that year, my first year. And what I did is our story time room is probably it's huge. It's just big. All right. Set the entire room with chairs, seated like an airplane, and kids got a ticket to board the airplane. They were able to bring in their suit, like a little suitcase, all right? Some kids, this is the greatest, this was a cool program. Because they said, Mr. Z, they're using their creativity and imagination. They said, it's my first time flying tonight. And I said, well, it's going to be a good ride, okay? And so I put this out, just like this projector, and we had an airplane window, and it had clouds, and I said, what do you see? All right, it's an I Spy type game. And it was hilarious what some of their answers were, just by these clouds, okay? It's like, there's Mickey Mouse. And it's like, okay, there is Mickey Mouse, okay? Oh, and it says, let's fly to Italy. I'll tell you in just a second. Here's a cool thing. I know it's dark, apologies. Google Maps, cool thing to do. I looked under Google Maps for Italy, you can see the boot, and the kids were just amazed that we were flying over the ocean, because remember, we're flying, and they were able to see a country. Okay? This is in Boone, Iowa, mind you. And I think I told you at the beginning, poverty rate in Boone is 50%, which is a lot, of course. So a lot of these families have never really boarded an airplane, and maybe never will board an airplane. I hope they do. And they were just excited. And when I clicked on here, and then all of a sudden the Leaning Tower was like, and I gave them the photograph to take with them, like a postcard, so they could pretend they had a snapshot. It was wonderful. So here's what we did, and I have it over here. I didn't really bring a suitcase, because like I said, the hotel, they asked me, they go, do you have stuff to bring in? I said, I'm a children's librarian. I have more than enough in my car, okay? What I did is, what I did bring is stencils, and there's paper, and in this photo, this is everything in the suitcase from A to Z. And it was so much fun for the kids to come up with their parents ideas on what started with what letter. So we worked on some letter knowledge, okay? And it was so funny with some of the stuff and that they came up with. So I encourage you to do that as well. To the beach. This was so much fun to do I did this during the winter. Okay? The beach, I kind of took it a little loosely because, it's sand, and yes, I've done dinosaur digs, and I haven't been around long enough. My seasoned professionals, that's what I call you, my seasoned professionals said, hey, maybe next time with sand, Mr. Z, you could put some plastic underneath. Because I have carpet in my story time at home. And I had a huge, I'm telling you, I had a swimming pool, kiddie pool size. And I was so stoked. They had their shovels, and they brought their hats around. And by the end, there was nothing in the pool. Yes, it's all gone. I thought I was going to get fired. No, it's okay. So with this one, I was like, okay, let's do it. Beaches are cool because you can't see clearly with stars and stuff. So I brought some rolls today. I brought some plastic shrink wrap for you to make telescopes. Again, construct them the way you want. And the benefits on the side, please look at them. Plastic wrap is something really important I want to talk about. Some of these engagements, you want to be clear to families that you have to make them adaptable to the age group. Okay? Because plastic wrap is a choking hazard, so I did bring wax paper, which they actually can poke holes and make constellations in as well. So yes. And then, like I said, roll up your sleeves. Crater experience, cookie sheet, cocoa powder, and flour. Drop the marbles down and look at craters and stuff. Sailing away, this is with Arthur's Dream Boat. I didn't bring all these activities, but here's the vision. This is our boat. I have multiples of these boats. And then we did a carnival type experience with the kids. All right? And then turkey or leaves. All right? And we did turkey bowling, which I have there with the coffee. You can, and plastic balls. All right? It's just hilarious because they roll it and they go like this. I know, I love it. Okay. And then flying away in balloons, balloon painting, if you want to do that. Very creative, abstract type work. And hopping with frogs. I did bring, you can make your own leap pads. And what you would do is you would think of a number, and then some child tried to say, I think you're thinking of 5. And it's like, no, I'm thinking of 10. And they have to hop 10 times, okay? It's hilarious because 3,000, it's like, no, not that many hops. All right, so briefly, techniques for searching. We're librarians. I don't really have to go through this. Search the internet is just filled with so much, okay? We want to think of the overall program and our goal for families. Do you want to have activity stations? Do you want to have a large activity? And will it accommodate for large or small groups? Are you looking for more arts and crafts? Then I will add, does it reflect our learning population? Your sheet gives this information. Center for the Developing Child is awesome. Center on Parent, Child, Family, and Community Engagement. There is such thing. Head Start nationally does that. And this is a good book, and that's a good website as well. So, learnerpotential@gmail.com. Have More than enough contact information for me. I do these workshops for individual library, this workshop for an individual library. I can come in and do an assessment with you if you contact me. I can come to Nebraska. I have other workshops, so just visit the website, contact me. We're not done with the workshop. There is supplementary information in their packets for you to take. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
So this actually may be a little controversial, but
I like controversy.
at our library, we don't do activities with our story time.
Okay.
We read books, we sing songs, we do clapboard, we do finger plays.
Okay.
We do music, puppets, we do all of that. We don't have it like an afterwards activity.
Sure.
We just don't. We don't do arts and crafts.
Okay. So I will say that this program is not our Storytime program. It's Family Fun. So it's a separate program entirely. Would you be interested in integrating with Storytime? I don't know what your staff matrix is. Is it enough staff to maybe develop a new program like this? Or could you add in an activity, like a simple activity at the end?
I don't think we want to in Storytime.
Okay, yeah.
And that's just sort of a cultural decision that we made.
Yeah, it's all, she makes a great point. It's all dependent upon your library. After story time for us, we have what's called Ready, Set, Play. So we set up the room with activities, not necessarily at this caliber because these are too messy or they're too much involved. Story time is so special because it is a literacy enriched narrative piece. We all know that. This is more sensory enhanced family engagement, and it's a whole separate entity. So I hope that you're able to take some small pieces, maybe not necessarily the activities, but some of the questions that we've gone over today back with you. But no, that's okay. All of us do things so much differently, and all of our programs are set up differently. Anybody else have any questions? Who's ready for activities? Woo! Instead of listening to me. Okay, so here's how it can be. You can go to whatever station. Again, this station over here may work good for you guys with story time and narrative development. Think about ways on how you want to enhance narrative skills and stories. And then we've got turkey bowling, and we've got the beach, and we've got something over there. Oh, that's leapfrog, and then we've got the airplanes and the balloons. Okay, paint. Let me just check one thing real quick. Okay, we've got some time, plenty of time. I hope that at the end we can have some conversation. So you're more than happy, again, to go wherever you want to go, and I'm just going to be a floater for now. But thank you. I'll say that first. There is a survey that I gave you. I hope that you can fill that out. Provide your comments anonymously. I do like to put some quotes on my website if they're good, which I think we've had fun. Okay, I've had fun with you today. And thank you. So, great, here we go. Good.